From Baxter's 942 in Louisville, Kentucky, this is Shooting from the Lip Live. My name is Erik McEwen, your host, Mr. Kevin Hale. What do we have in this segment?
In the state of Kentucky, within the last week, there has been this issue with the teachers, Bevin, and Frankfort. There was a bill, I want to say it was last Thursday night.
It was Thursday night, SB 151, right?
Yeah, that was, late at night and got passed, but it was shoved in with you mentioned the bill.
Sewage?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, what the fuck is happening in Frankfort when we have this type of shit? I'm sorry, dude. It really... Quit knocking my mic over. This really fucks me up because I get angry. I had amazing educators, if you can believe it, Lip Nation, growing up, and I went to decent schools. And to see these people who even talked about, what they're doing for 27 years to get this pension, and now it's gone. And then what I deal with during the day, and I deal with educators on Fridays, every Friday, and I know a couple of them are 26 years in.
Yeah.
And I have a big problem with, even, and I know Lip Nation knows where I kind of lean, but I have a big problem with Bevin, and I'm glad we have somebody here right now. So why don't you tell me who we have? This isn't necessarily a panel, but who do we have here to talk about?
I reached out to some friends, and actually someone that I went to school with back in the day, and she is a school teacher here in town, Alice Spagnola. Alice, you're at... Can you say?
I'm at Louisville Male High School.
Louisville Male. Alice, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been, the last time I saw you was at a softball field or something like that?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. We've stayed in touch. And, so from me to you, appreciate the service that you do as far as the education goes. Give us a little background on you. How long have you been teaching?
This will be my 17th year. My plan is to teach for 9 more years after this. We'll see if that happens. It may have to be 14. Remains to be seen. And
when you say it may have to be 14, it's because?
I'm not sure they're going to pay for health insurance.
Right. Okay.
It's paid for a year, but they may not pay for retirees not 65 to have health insurance. So if that's the case, I have to teach till I'm 65.
Gotcha. Ooh. Also joining us is our man, Zach Longoria, who's our friend of the show. He's a local musician, but he's whether he wants to acknowledge it or not, our residential Shooting from the Lip Political Contributor. Zach, what's up?
That's quite a
mouthful. I know.
I'm doing fine.
Good. So Zach is here. Zach, with his political knowledge and the ins and outs with here local and across the state, we thought having these two on, they can tell us what's going on with this bill. And there's been the teachers have hit Frankfort. So let's start with. I'm gonna start with you, Alice. Last Thursday night, take us to what you were thinking doing last Thursday night.
Last Thursday afternoon, probably around 2:00, I got a message that they urgently needed people to go to Frankfort to lobby because the bill was coming up. I was unable to go, but I did actually sit and watch the House deliberate. When it passed the House, then I went and listened to the Senate deliberate and watched as our legislators, one by one, not all of the Republicans, but a good number of them passed this bill on a sewage bill that they had gutted and replaced with our pension bill. And at the time, we didn't know what was in it because it's a 491-page bill, and nobody had read the whole thing.
It was fresh off the copier is what I read.
Yeah.
Still warm from the copy machine.
Seriously, it was a sewage bill. And help me understand this, Zach. How in the hell does Frankfort think that they could have incorporated this into a sewage bill? And, I mean, obviously, they didn't give a shit of the ramifications of this.
That much is clear.
Very clear.
I mean, it's not the first time. It's a tale as old as time. When they try to get stuff passed, it happens on a national level. But I would assume the idea was that it would slip into a bill that would get the votes in the middle of the night, and there wouldn't be much media coverage on it. I think that was maybe the hope. I don't know how that was a real strategy, because obviously there's going to be a shit ton of pissed off teachers. And just to go into this, for somebody like me, when I see stuff like this, I think the thing that really gets me is, like, I understand that, like, fiscal responsibility is important. I understand that our budget's important. I understand that we have to cut spending because we got a lot of programs that we can't afford. But what's a real hard pill for me to swallow is when we see what's being prioritized, and when you see extreme tax breaks for the wealthiest people in Kentucky, and then the first people that are on the chopping block are educators. That's very frustrating. And then in the same breath, that you have somebody talk to us about being fiscally responsible and not kicking the can down the road, and then you see what they prioritize is something that they're not going to, taxes on the wealthiest people in Kentucky. They're going to give them giant tax breaks, and then the people that get left holding the bag are teachers who literally do an invaluable job. I don't see how that's a positive long-term strategy at all, and I think that's the most frustrating part about all of this, is just like how Republicans in this state value and prioritize education and the educators themselves. And it's already a job that's not the best paying. They already don't get Social Security, so that's already something that the state saves on. So just to see how cavalier they are about the people that literally educate the next generation is pretty disgusting.
Add to that, Alice.
Well, I mean, we have this bill that came through, and supposedly it was going to, be the be-all and end-all. It was going to save our pensions. But really, it only, I think it makes 1% is what's going to go toward the unfunded liability, and that actually comes from local districts. They put 2% of the funding that the state used to fund, and they pushed it back on the school districts to fund that. And there was a huge swath of Kentucky where the school districts were simply going to have to close up because they are just operating by the thinnest of margins. And there may be school districts that have to close up because of the things that Frankfort's doing.
Add to that part.
I mean, I have nothing to add to that. I mean, she's exactly right. I mean, it's gross.
So that's from Thursday night. So over the weekend, there's been demonstrations. There's been the flooding at Frankfort. I know this week, yesterday, today again. What is the message? What is the intent for all these teachers going to Frankfort? What are they trying to really get across, Al?
Well, yesterday the big thing was the budget, because there were many things in the budget that, like I said, the school districts, some of them would not be able to continue to operate. There were things in the budget that were taking transportation funds. If you know anything about many of the school districts in our state, if they cannot get kids from the middle of nowhere to the school, the one school in their district, then the kids aren't going to be able to go to school. Mm-hmm. Luckily, a lot of that money was put back into the bill. They were going to get rid of school resource people, the FRISICs, which resource centers, which help not just the kids but the families. That funding was put back. A lot of the funding has been put back, but still there are a lot of things in there that are very concerning. Like they raised the SEEK funding, but it doesn't say anywhere that they can't use the SEEK funding for charter schools.
Right.
That the kids, like parents can't say, well, we would like to get our funding and take it to this other place.
Explain what the SEEK funding actually is in a nutshell for those that wouldn't know.
SEEK funding is the per child funding that a district will get in order to operate.
Right.
And it's just what they get so that the kids get their education. And part of it, back in the late 80s, there was this imbalance in the state, and they ruled it was unconstitutional for one district to have tons and tons of money and other districts not to have any. So I don't know if the SEEK funding came in there. It was already there, but it was more equalized at that time. And now it's becoming more and more unequal again.
Right. from your point of view, do you feel why do you think it is that Republican legislators have made it a point of emphasis to underfund and gut education? Something that this state doesn't really rank the highest in across the board. Something this state needs to be better. And you would think the idea would be, sure, maybe you could talk about comprehensive ways to reinvest money to make it better, or maybe what we've been doing is, and I'm open to those discussions, but it seems like what they're doing is very counterproductive to try to make education more efficient, leaner, and work better. It seems as though they don't have a vested interest in wanting it to succeed. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think about that?
I really think that there is a goal to undermine public schools, cause them to fail, and bring in for-profit charter schools. I think that's the ultimate goal of our...
Wow.
I think that's what it is.
But there's so much, about the charter schools, there's some instances where charter schools, maybe they have worked, but there's a lot of instances where that money just gets thrown away. If you thought if you were operating under the mind that you thought public education was thrown away, there's a lot of charter schools that's even worse about throwing the money away, and then it becomes a lobbying issue. It becomes very, very grotesque in how that money works to get charter schools and where the money's going and who gets it.
Yeah, my youngest is
people start being educated.
Is a sophomore at Ballard. Will this have any potential impact with her between now and the next 2 years? Where does this start really potentially impacting kids?
Honestly, I don't think it'll impact kids in Jefferson County at this point, because I think the county has enough in resources in order to avoid having issues. Right. It would impact your child if your child was in one of the more rural areas where they have less funds, less means to provide. There are going to be some programs that are discontinued. I have a list, but I'd have to look it up. I can't keep all of them straight, but there are some programs that have been discontinued through this budgeting process, and that ultimately can affect kids if they have specific things that they do and specific needs.
Zach, does Louisville have a sewage problem?
Do they?
I don't know. That was the bill. What was that? What's that bill about?
I think the bill is pretty obvious. It was the bill is what we call bullshit.
Yeah.
And that bill was drawn up to mask what the actual intent was, and the intent was pretty obvious. And here's one thing I will say that's positive about all this is that, and I've said this many times, is that if too many people are focused on presidential races or state senate races, but if you want to talk about what affects you personally that you should be the most involved in, forget Trump, forget any national politics. If you're involved in your local and state elections and you're involved politically, you can really get action that's going to affect you on a localized level. And not only that, your state reps are accessible. You can find them. They're around. You can talk to them. You can pin them down. I go to several different events every week, and I meet tons of state reps. They're just normal people like most. Some of them have been involved in politics for a long time, and they're at a different tier. But the great majority of them are very accessible. And if you're involved in local politics, these kinds of things you can remedy by voting their asses out, and you have an opportunity to do that in November. To right the ship. And granted, state politics in Kentucky has been pretty corrupt, and the Democrats have been in control. Just to be fair, the Democrats have had control for long. This is the first time Republicans have ever had control of the House and the governor's mansion ever. Not ever, but since like the early 1920s or something like that.
Really?
So Democrats have been in control in this state for a long, long time, and shit has still been corrupt. But the reason it's corrupt is because the public doesn't care enough to hold anyone accountable, and that's a failure on our part. I say this all the time. You don't like your local situation, you don't like your politicians in your state government, then you should make a concerted effort to make it a priority to know who the hell your state rep is. If you're sitting in this room right now and you don't know who your state rep is, I would want to know that. You should know who your representatives are and who's representing you in Frankfort, and you should make it a priority to hold them accountable. And you hold them accountable by doing exactly what these teachers are doing, by taking their asses to Frankfort and holding up their signs telling Matt Bevin that he likes Nickelback. That's important for democracy. That's all I'm saying.
Nickelback.
Did you see that?
That might have been the first time we've heard Nickelback on this show.
And
It'll be the last time.
Yeah,
it'll be the last time.
So
there's nothing to talk
we're
about.
talking about Republicans in Frankfort right now. Bevin has definitely said that he's a Tea Party. So,
which is a code word for he's a moron. Somebody's like, I'm in the Tea Party. I'm like, cool. Do you just tell people you're an idiot like on purpose, or do you, is that like
proud of
is that a thing you do?
Right. So, in your opinion, in both of your opinion, when we're talking about conservative side, how much different do you view a Tea Party versus Republican?
I think the Tea Party is a fraud.
Okay.
Of a political party. The Tea Party, if those of you don't know, the Tea Party was the far right. I don't say far right, but it is
far right.
It was the it just depends on who you're talking to, but it was the counterculture political movement of the Obama administration in its first 4 years, and their whole ideology is principled in fiscal responsibility and certain morons.
Which is an issue.
It is like there is definitely a real conversation to be talked about fiscal responsibility, not just in the state level, but nationally
especially nationally
with the national debt, with the deficit, and all those different things. So like that's a real thing, but they use that way to cultivate this new movement. They don't tread on me, and they're being constitutionalists and whatever else was like their war cry. But let's talk about who the main leaders in that and who funded that. The Koch brothers. The Koch brothers are the ones that were behind even building that movement. So the movement in and of itself, just the foundation of it, is based on lies and on bullshit and deceit. The core issue, if you want to talk about fiscal responsibility, that's a conversation I'd welcome, and that we can have that one. But both Trump administration half of those people in there were all about fiscal responsibility when Obama was president. Look at this tax plan that they just passed. I mean, they're going to explode the deficit worse than Obama.
Well, this is great content for another show, and we need to make sure this happens very soon.
Yeah, but anyway, I want a tangent about the Tea Party. My point is that the Tea Party is bullshit. And Matt Bevin and their leaders, Sarah Palin and all those other people that are involved in the Tea Party, that should have been a giant red flag for the seriousness of that movement.
And do you believe that this is something, and I've heard this as maybe a conspiracy theory, but something to make him be in the spotlight because he's obviously on the
100%.
coattails of Trump?
100%.
And did he do this to
his run for governor was based on him running against McConnell as a Tea Party candidate.
Is this something that he's trying to do to gain one of the recent cabinet vacancies?
Matt Bevin does not give a shit about this state. Matt Bevin cares about Matt Bevin, and Matt Bevin cares about his political longevity, and that is getting to Washington, D.C.
So back to SB 151, which, the timeline of it is atrocious.
It's awful.
This isn't something that happens. Where are we going with that? I mean, I'm trying to find, and we couldn't get a counterpoint at all for this show.
We tried.
A counterpoint for Matt Bevin?
Why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah. I mean,
is there anybody outside of this one side of the aisle in Frankfort that actually knows what's going on and can justify what he's doing?
No, I mean the right, or the Republicans. I'm gonna say the right because it's like just the right of this state who was elected is operating under the belief that they are doing what's necessary and what needs to be done, but that again is bullshit, because what they have done is they've decided what's a priority and what isn't, and rich people are a priority and educators are not, and that's a problem for me. You could have given half the tax breaks and you could have funded the teachers.
So Alice, where are we? In 35th? Is this what I've heard as far as the state?
I don't know the current
obviously
rank.
I mean,
we're higher than we used to be.
And I'm sure that
because we used to be like 48th or something.
I've heard that.
But,
so 35th was a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Is this something? Should we hurt the teachers?
Well, the thing,
when we're in this situation.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, if I look at it from my standpoint, what they passed is not a bad thing, because they pretty much gave me everything except I can't get all of my sick days when I retire. They're frozen at the end of the year. But where this does hurt me is they're going to have trouble recruiting new teachers.
Right.
Because the new plan is cash plan that they will be putting money into, but there's no guarantee of growth. These new teachers are not guaranteed growth. There are a ton of benefits they won't have, and they don't get Social Security. And they can't get their spouse's Social Security, by the way, either. And that's not a state law, that's federal law.
Right.
Like, I have Social Security, which I won't get.
To her point, most public serving jobs have an incentive built in to keep people filling those positions. My wife works for a nonprofit, and part of the reason why she works at this job, not that she loves helping these kids who have type 1 diabetes and helping them in those families, like she loves that. But the reason why she took that job is because she's got $200,000 in law school debt. And the program that she's in, a program that Trump is trying to get rid of, he may have already actually gotten rid of it, was a program that when you work in a job such as a nonprofit for 10 years, the government offers student loan debt. For somebody that has $200,000 worth of debt to go into public service for 10 years and $200,000, granted, she's paying on her student loans every month. She has to make those payments on time every month for 10 years, and then they absolve the rest of her debt. So she's going to wind up only having to probably pay, like in that time, like maybe $40,000, $50,000 of that $200,000 worth of debt.
For somebody who's contributing to what?
Who's doing a job, you know what I mean? She's not making $200,000 a year. She's getting paid, a very normal salary, like very similar to what a teacher would make. But part of that incentive to work that job for that pay is that program that allows her to pay off her student loan debt. And there's a lot of those types of incentives built into any kind of public service work that you do. But the Trump administration is getting rid of that program, and you're seeing it on this level too, with like it's decentivizing wanting to move into a field that benefits the public. And that's what I mean when I say like the long-term goal here is a dumb one.
Is it down to the point where something like this, the teachers, where I'm deviating a little bit, marijuana, the legalization of it, is this a step where, is this a card that can be played for people who are pro?
We got a debt. If pot was legal and we were doing what Colorado was doing, we'd have a surplus and we wouldn't be sitting here.
Right. Well, then Alice wouldn't be here but then we wouldn't have this show.
No, we'd have plenty of things. Look, Matt Bevin is a moron. We'd have plenty of things to talk about. This just wouldn't be one of them.
Yeah. So, well, Alice, before Zach got here, we got to share this with Zach. You're a sport fan. Mm-hmm. Throw this in his face for his reaction.
I saw it on her phone already. Yeah.
It's creepy.
But you know what? She can't really talk smack to me because we got that cup.
Oh, yeah. You got the biggest whiner in the planet.
Which one, Sydney?
Yeah.
Hey, he's really good at hockey, though.
Yeah, he's a whiner, though.
What you do when you're MVP?
LeBron James is a whiner. Sidney Crosby actually produces championships and beats the Flyers last week.
Yeah. I will say this, though, that was a great Stanley Cup, and the Predators were legit. Legit.
Definitely.
Alice, once we get this shipment in, because you were here doing a podcast with us with Zach Longoria, you'll be eligible for one of these. This is a Zach Longoria action figure that we are in the process.
Yeah, we're getting that worked out. Obviously, he clearly has all of my proper measurements.
Show it to the lip nation.
Can we see
it?
Yeah. I'll post it.
It looks just like me. You did a great job. Yeah, you really got it together.
Exactly.
I don't really collect action figures, though.
Yeah, but
you might want to. That's what you're saying.
You've never met Zach Longoria.
All right.
Y'all are dumb.
It's that guy.
Right. Alice came on and killed it.
Yeah.
Honestly, because here's the thing, Alice, because I feel like we'll be able to have you back on. How long do you think this situation is going to go on? Before some resolution that you'll be satisfied with?
Yeah, I really know. And there are a lot of things going on, a lot of teachers working behind the scenes as we speak, arranging demonstrations. The Kentucky Education Association Delegate Assembly is this week.
Aren't they doing something here at the...
It's at the Marriott.
the actual over
At Van Hoos?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a demonstration tomorrow morning at 7:30.
Okay.
Teachers will be demonstrating there, not against the district, but simply demonstrating for education. Frankly, we were not in Frankfort yesterday because of pensions. We were there because in our concern for students.
So this is, and I think this needs to be made clear, this is not teachers in Louisville against Jefferson County Public Schools. This is teachers in Louisville and other counties, obviously, against the state government right now.
I mean, they're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all in the same boat. Well, I'm going to say this. Whatever you do, keep being loud. Keep inspiring everybody else to be loud. Do not go away. And we are going to stick it right to them in November.
Yep.
Because I think we're at a really unique turning point on a national level and on a local, state level of the public has now seen what the bottom looks like. If you've been wondering how bad can it get if we just don't care, well, folks, you're here. This is it. This is what the bottom looks like. And if you don't give a shit about what goes on in your country politically, this is continue to see happen over and over and over again, and we'll constantly be mad and angry, but take that anger and turn it into action, and the first part of that action means you show up to the voting booth in November and you put your money where your vote is and you vote these assholes out.
There you go. Well said. Zach Longoria, Alice Spagnola. Great segment tonight, Erik.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, it was really nice to
braving
see you.
the weather.
Yeah, what weather? Alice was like fearing that there was going to be.
Well, I mean, it's scary.
She was
out there.
She was
It's
going
scary
to
out
wind
there.
up in Oz tonight because of the.
I mean, I'd love to be in Oz, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Put me in a nader. Take me somewhere. I'm happy to go to Oz.
Gotcha. All right, great segment, guys. Thanks so much.